This is the future of education.
Welcome to the Future of Education. I'm Danny Curtis, and you're joining the show where we are dedicated to creating a world in which all individuals can build their passions, fulfill their potential, and live lives of purpose. And today, to help us think through that, we welcome Dr. Jonah Schenker, Superintendent of Ulster-Boses, which is a regional education services district in New York. And I'm really excited to have Jonah on today. Because he is going to tell us about the innovative work that he is doing with his partner districts in New York, including the opening of a very new and very big Center for Career and Technical Education that's playing an important role in a larger shift happening in New York towards rethinking student competencies. And so, Jonah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. I'm super glad to be here and actually recording from the new site. As we were just chatting about. So I'm happy to be in space with you.
So cool. And we especially appreciate you carving out the time right now. At time of recording, we are just leading into a new school year. So I'm sure this is a busy time for you.
It's always a busy time for schools as we think about opening, but especially busy when, a new 140,000 square foot facility is, just on the agenda as something to get opened as well. So yeah.
Awesome. It's a big agenda item right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I want to dig into that center in a second, but just to start, I'd love to hear about your journey to this work. What brought you to Ulster-Boses?
Yeah. So, kind of the 1 minute overview. I started my journey in school. And I describe it as I was good at school. I knew how to do school. I don't really recall, what I was really getting at or absorbing. I recognize amazing teachers throughout that, but the learning style, the approach, that was always didn't feel right. And so I found myself gravitating towards shop class. I found myself gravitating towards clubs and extracurricular. But again, I knew how to play the game. And so I got good grades, went off to college and did about 2 years and then left and spent my second 2 years of undergrad traveling around the world in an independent study, finished my undergrad that way. And that was really where kind of the aperture opened up, that there's more than one way to kind of get at this thing we call learning in school. Fast forwarding, started my career in a new school startup in Brooklyn, spent about 5 years there teaching, taught for another 3 or 4 years after I left the city in Dutchess County, New York, and then began my journey at Ulster-Boses 16 years ago as an administrator, assistant principal, teacher, coach, and have worked through the progression of leadership all here at Ulster-Boses. So building principal and director and interim directors of portions of our entity that handle tech and professional learning. Had the opportunity to become the deputy superintendent here, and then our superintendent at the time retired. And that was the moment at which I had the opportunity to become the district superintendent. And the district superintendent is an interesting role in a BOCES. One portion of the role is the CEO of the BOCES, so really handling like all the programming that we're doing. And then the other portion is a direct report for the commissioner through the New York State Education Department. And that's the kind of two-way conduit that offers or where we support districts in initiative that is coming out of the state education department, and equally as important, bringing up voice from the ground floor to help inform the education department around decision-making, policy, and things like that. So it's a different role. I'm very, very fortunate, wonderful board who supports innovation. And about 10 years ago in one of my principalships, I got the opportunity to start a school, a PTech school, Pathways in Technology Early College High School. It's a 6-year program. And that was really where I really began to become passionate around economic and workforce development. around the interconnectedness or the lack of interconnectedness of the entities that need to pull in the same direction on behalf of students if we're going to really do this work. And that was done in kind of this micro school where we built out that model, but tremendous amount of gains. And I'm sitting here today in a center that represents the scalability of that same vision. And so I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'll pause there for you.
Yeah, that connects a lot of dots in the lead up to the present day. That day being just less than a week out from the opening of the new career and technical centers at iPark 87, as it's called. Could you tell me more about the center and its services, and give us a view into the story behind its development?
Sure. So, we run a ton of different types of programming that are student facing. We have many other divisions that are non-student facing work, but focusing on the student facing, career and technical education. So for the most part, students come to us in their junior and senior year as part of their journey through 9 through 12 in our district. So in our county, our BOCES works with 8 component districts. Those are the districts in our BOCES region. And so many of those students are progressing through the 22 credits and 5 Regents exams as part of the graduation requirements, which I know we're going to get to later because that's shifting as well. And they come up to us for either AM or PM, and they're engaged in career and technical education, automotive, culinary. We have all of the health occupations, a technology class, electrical, HVAC, and go down the list, welding. And they're getting the technical skills, but also students are progressing through integrated academics as well. So they may be getting some math credits and science credits and English credits, etc. And career in tech, or you'll hear some people talk about VOTech or vocational tech, is in the same kind of dilemma as our traditional education system, where we are still very much, for the most part, operating in this kind of industrial model of schooling. And so we've been pushing on that for a decade across all of our programs. What should schools really be? What can schools be? And how do we move out of this industrial model of teaching and learning into something that's more relevant for the students in order to prepare them for whatever next is? And so kind of going to the site here, the iPark site is the former IBM site in Kingston, New York. So the story of that IBM, headquarters, last I heard in this area of the facility, 6,700 employees. Like, you don't go anywhere in Ulster County and have a conversation with somebody who didn't move here, have an uncle or a cousin who were worked here at the facility. And again, like many communities in New York, especially those with those kind of single massive industries that outmigrated, they left, and it bottoms out a community, an economy, hope, and really has been this for decades, this legacy of failure, where there had been several attempts to kind of think about how to revitalize this campus. The campus was turned over and purchased to National Resources, who really did an amazing job at the cleanup from an ecological standpoint, and making the site safe and working through that in partnership with many entities, county government and environmental protection agency, etc. And about 8 years ago, some conversations about let's take a look at this, and some early conversations and some dialogues. And again, the ground is not always ripe for things to grow. And so that kind of fell short, and then we took a break through that little period of time known as COVID. And I had the opportunity to step into this position and rekindle those conversations, and kind of went at it with a little bit of a different strategy than prior. and began to get steam on this concept, right? And a lot of that, I think, is about preparation and meeting opportunity, but also really the amount of groundwork to engage with our 8 districts to see the why and the what and the how through transparent conversations rooted in what's right for students, what's right for kids. And so, that took hold. And we have become what will be the anchor, for this campus. The career and technical school that will be here is amazing. I was saying for a while, like, it's going to be amazing, but I keep reminding myself actually that today, about an hour before this conversation, our we had gotten our CO from the town some time back, but our sign off from the New York Education Department and the commissioner came through. So it's no longer like when it happens, it's here and happening. And the school is amazing, but the campus represents so much, is so much larger, right? It is an ecosystem that brings together county government, industry, 2-year and 4-year colleges, and really this messaging that I've been talking about has been a metaphor. Now we have a physical representation of the commitment of what it takes to really do economic and workforce development, which is in turn that is skills and workforce gap work. It is community revitalization work. It's economic mobility work. So plans here for millions of square feet for other industries to be site-based. Housing, we know housing and employer and future employees are 2 critical pieces. So let's not talk about how to solve them. Let's build that. And so, this is the beginning to a multi-phase project to, again, do that work. Really, really exciting. And I could talk a little bit about, when you feel it's right to about, again, what's the next phase in terms of that larger conversation or larger impact. Because the school's going to be magnificent and it's going to do wonderful things, but I'm really thinking about how this becomes a model to replicate out, because we are not the only community and geography that is facing economic and workforce development conversations, as well as this type of revitalization from out-migration.
Yeah, I'm excited to get there. Before we do, I want to stay with one point you brought up around the opportunities that being in this space, this larger campus with all of these different organizations around, opens up for partnerships. Because obviously, with blended career technical education initiatives, partnership is such a critical component, but also a huge sticking point for lots of places, districts that are trying to start these initiatives.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear, how are you, first of all, what are you leveraging? What types of programming are you leveraging these partnerships to create? And how are you navigating some of those challenges, different schedules, norms, policies between these types of organizations to create productive collaboration?
Yeah. And I'm really excited that you kind of asking that question, because that is at the heart of either the solution or the dilemma that has been workforce and economic development, because it requires efficiency and collaboration, right? And I always make it a point to kind of the disclaimer that the problem doesn't lie with that we don't have really amazing people in all of these entities working really hard. The problem is in the coordinated efforts to actually get the work done. So that's one piece. The other piece is how we define where this work and at what age this work needs to happen. Before I go into that, because I think that's really the segue into the model for that, is kind of this site and what you were talking about, rather like the design principles of this site are based on, height, and space and light and and intra operability. So when industry partners come in here, they're going to see their hopes, their feedback, their expertise in what the future of work needs to look like, right? Like I think so often educators are charged with the job of producing students who are equipped to do whatever next is, but we don't ask those people who are in the realm of next, what do you really need to see? Like, what do you really need to see when this student crosses the threshold to interview with you into a workforce, into a college classroom, into a military experience, into an internship, or again, whatever the list is? We prepare them with a body of school things. And there's not always an alignment between like what we teach and what is needed, which is why we hear we're not getting employees or students coming to us that are prepared to do X. And it's very simple. We just got to ask them the question. The piece that you surfaced, which is the private sector, community-based sector, isn't staffed or equipped to navigate the complex system of K-12, and the schools aren't equipped to navigate the outside world. And so all of this work historically is relational. I'm Jonah. I'm the guidance counselor. I have a great relationship with these two businesses. It's thriving. I'm getting some students experience. I get another job. I leave. It's gone. And so our work and our model is about systems and structures, cadence and rituals and routines that are systematic, that move from the relational level down to the way a community acts and performs and behaves as part of their DNA, not in a one-off meeting for a task, but how they consistently come together, bringing these entities who have historically had a difficulty working together and making it really easy, right? Like schools need to make it really easy for industries to participate, and industries don't want to do school things because that's not what they do. And schools don't want to do that. So what's the complementary relationship that needs to happen? And I would suggest that, as part of that, and inherent in who we are, is the single point entry for all of this work to happen, right? So we are suggesting, and every community and state has entities that they may not be titled the same, but act as these intermediaries. So BOCES, Board of Cooperative Educational Services, is designed to get multiple entities to cooperate on behalf of whatever that service is. And so what we're positioning again is that single point entry. Any child in Ulster County, regardless of whether they're in our program or not, who needs an internship or a work experience, the industry and community field knows all I have to say is I'm looking for X. We are the conduit to K-12 in the schools. The schools don't have to worry about that. They just say, hey, we have 15 kids who need, and we do the facilitation so that entities don't have to be talking to, because an industry that wants to tap into schools here has to navigate 8 superintendents, 8 school districts, 8 board of education, each with their local context, rather than the knowing just being like, hey, we need that partnership. This is the clearinghouse for all that to happen. And I would suggest that the same model is true for mental health and the disconnect and access of services. It's coordination. All right. It's not quality of service. So here we'll begin to do that work. We're also thinking about the model. Right. There is this age old stigma of career and technical education, right? We have those who can do school and go and are college bound. And for those who can't, we've got these other things, right? And I would argue that what we need to be moving towards is one skill set and many different opportunities to be able to engage in pathways to get there, right? And the reason why we define that is because our school system, the industrial model, is built on a single academic pathway, right? Like that's the valued pathway. And then if you can't do that, like we have all of these other options, rather than saying all kids can, and here's 15 different ways to connect a passion with a can, with a pathway, that are all going to be yielding a common skill set that we know is going to be critical, whether you're going to college, 2-year, 4-year, certification, into the workforce, that same list that we begin to surface. So that's exciting work on the ground floor. And you'll see that, right? Like, we're no longer going to have like the students who are just in the HVAC bubble. We had an industry partner here yesterday, and we got a little snippet video from him, and he said, "Yeah, we don't need just students who, students in HVAC need to know welding and electric." And so you'll see the proximity of classrooms that used to be siloed opened up, and it's that, again, that ability to work across lines. We're not just saying that. It's present in schedules, it's valued in space usage, and it will be driven by kind of this next iteration and instructional model in this venue, career and technical education. And not that but it's no different in our programs that are special education, right? Like, the model of teaching and learning is different there. The canvas and the experience is just different than career and technical education, but all of my programs are based on a very, very, very explicit driver of how we think about relationships, how we think about teaching and learning, and all of that resting on access and belonging and equity and diversity.
A lot of really great stuff to unpack there, but especially appreciate this overarching point that these new resources are going to be accompanied by an innovation on the model. Because I think so often schools acquire new resources, bring in new innovations, but try to work it into the existing industrial model, as you said, and are disappointed when they aren't able to produce the results that they're looking for with these new resources in the old model. And so excited to hear that it's accompanying a larger rethink. And I know that the center fits into a larger shift happening in New York, where the state is rethinking the competencies that they want their students to develop. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about the role that Ulster BOCES is playing in supporting its district in working towards that rethink of competencies and the timeline of that over the next few years.
Yeah. So you are absolutely right. New York, let me kind of go back to a little bit of the timeline. We've been at this conversation and work and other systems in New York and beyond as well. But we've been at this for about a decade. And again, in 2019, the Board of Regents, put together what they call the Blue Ribbon Commission, diverse group of stakeholders to rethink what it means to be a graduate here in New York. And in that, 12 recommendations surfaced. Board of Regents looked at those recommendations and charged the New York State Education Department with thinking about what this means. New York Age, and in between, a little bit of a setback with, again, that same COVID period, and they refueled and regained. But it's a beautiful document, the process and the product. And so the New York State Education Department took those recommendations and developed what they call New York Inspires, which is a framework that we are currently in, that has kind of a planning phase and then 3 phases after that are based around how those 12 recommendations were distilled down to kind of these 4 transformations. One of those transformations is the adoption of the portrait of a grad. The portrait of a grad, those competencies you talked about, students being academically prepared, creative innovators, critical thinkers, effective communicators, global citizens, and reflective and future focus with adopted definitions. And that portrait was adopted just recently by the Board of Regents. Secondly, redefining learning and credits, learning experiences and credits. Thirdly, moving to the decoupling of Regents assessments from graduation requirements and moving to a single transcript. So that's kind of the body of work. And, just to take a step back to where you started, because it resonates really deeply with me and often always where I start whenever I have the chance to talk with school leaders or school people, which is, I don't believe that we have an educator or teacher problem in this country. We have fine educators and teachers. We have a container issue. That is, the container in which we ask them to do their job is tragically outdated and flawed. And I would go as far as to say actually designed to not promote access and equity, right? And so when you talk about those initiatives, any initiative or ideas or innovation, they are veneer laid on top of our current foundation, which is flawed. And so none of those initiatives or change work is going to take place when the foundation of school is based on numerical grading, which is designed to rank and sort students, which is an academic school year between September and June, depending on where you are in the country. That's where it is here. Some start in August, where 9, 10, 11, 12 grades stack on that with requirements at the end of the year. So we've defined learning, success, passing, and failure between September and June. And if you don't do it, then you fail. Right? Like, and we can go down through all of these like systems that like school did to us, that if we were able to navigate, we did okay. And if not, and you can identify, I can walk into any third grade classroom in the country and identify a child within an hour that's probably going to be able to navigate the system or not. Right? Because sitting still, compliance, you look down the drop down menus at that teachers have to give to students on report cards, right? Like, has difficulties paying attention in class, can't sit still. No, like the student who has difficulty paying attention in class just needs to move. Like, when did we decide that movement was bad? Like, so I mean, all of those things. So the New York Inspire is a game changer for changing that foundation. I believe I love all of the components of it. To me, out of all of the transformations, if we don't get in transformation 2, redefining learning experiences right, then we're going to be looking at the application of all the stuff on how we've defined what a learning experience should be based on the model. So we've really done our work around thinking about those shifts that need to happen in classes where students are moving from just compliance to working on really meaningful project work, to be of service to community of the world, changing the audience. And I'm not discounting that content knowledge or literacy or math isn't important. I'm just saying we need to value how we think about learning experiences as a mechanism to get there. So in this rollout, kind of getting around to kind of your final question, as a BOCES, we're charged with supporting districts in thinking about how do you do this work, whatever it might be. And I saw an opportunity in the rollout and what's needed on the ground floor. And before actually what we need to see teachers doing, we need to ensure that our leaders understand how to lead transformational work. And so we have had a long-standing partnership with the Stanford D School, design thinking, human-centric design work, and began to put together not a prescription, but a playbook that outlined a process, a set of tools, questions that are anchored in this human-centric design work, so that prior to schools just wanting to do the checklist of what do we need to do for this New York Inspires thing, they really engage in the needed work up front. That's the driver to transformation, which is empathy. Right? If we're going to redesign a system or we're going to design a system, then we need to talk to the people who we're designing it for first to make sure that our design is answering the right question. And so it's this beautiful document that aligns with the phases of New York that, again, I would attribute to kind of a choose your own adventure. I don't want it to be my way or my team's way or our way. But what has to happen, where there can't be flexibility, is we have to talk to people. Now, here's a selection of questions that you might ask. Here's a number of tools that you might consider. Take pieces of them, invent your own. But like, this is step one. And as we think about redesign a school, if we're really going to do this work that's going to be transformational, there's students, there's boards of education, there's community members. There are community members who went through school, who have a perception of school based on a single experience in a cafeteria or a science class from when they went there.
Mm-hmm.
We need to engage them in the process. We have to ask them what went wrong, what didn't work, right? Like, let's not just ask the folks who school works for, but more importantly, let's ask the folks who it's not working for, what does it need? Because I'm a huge advocate in the design thinking for when we do design work, we need to design for those furthest from opportunity. We have an epidemic of average in this country, right? Like, everything's designed around economics of doing the most amount of good for the most amount of people in the middle. And then we need to create all of these, like, either enrichments or interventions to get people back to middle. And it turns out, actually, if we just consider the design from furthest from opportunity, or what we call the extreme users, right? Like, everybody benefits. It's not a zero-sum game. And there's all those examples that are used to highlight that, right? Like the curb cut, design for mobility, wheelchairs, etc. But it turns out that the delivery person can roll their dolly up there. It turns out someone who's wheeling a bicycle, a parent or guardian or mother with a stroller. I mean, we can go down the list. So, like, nobody lost out because we made those. We actually just thought more about making it accessible. And the same is true in all of those examples. So if we take the opportunity to engage all those voices in redefining what school could be, our work is to not come up again with one recipe, but engage with our 8 districts, allow them each in their local context to do this work and kind of co-author the story of their community. But equally as critical is bringing those folks back together to share and stretch and tune and reflect together. And as they're co-authoring their individual stories and we're bringing together, we're beginning to sew a story together of Ulster County. And if all of the areas in New York are doing this kind of same thing, not necessarily using, again, our playbook isn't the only tool, but it's a tool. And if we're all beginning to do this work, then Ulster County and Dutchess County and Sullivan County and Westchester County, and we can go down the list, then the story of New York State begins to weave together. And the fidelity of the initiative as it relates to, like, its intentionality of actually transformation doesn't come from here's what you need to do, but it comes through the consistency of, like, how we hold space, how we use process, the questions we ask, tools we use, and most importantly, leaning on that kind of first stage of empathy, moving into ideation and design and prototyping, and then scalability, of course.
Yeah, I love this vision that you've set out, sort of starting with the human at the center and extending out to create a statewide change. And so to tie these two pieces together to round out our conversation here, I'm wondering how, as the state changes the container and the districts continue to do this work to reimagine learning in a more human-centered way, how does it change the work that you're able to do at the center at iPark 87? And what new opportunities does that unlock for you all?
Yeah. So again, kind of going back to, talking about, and having kind of fractals of this work. This becomes a hub for people to convene, to take a look at what's possible. And the playbook that I talked about in terms of the transformation of school will be accompanied by another playbook that I hope to launch in January around economic and workforce development, around community revitalization, around economic mobility. And I believe that it is the intersection of both of those where a new definition of what's possible lies. When we begin to center here in Ulster County the 20,000 students, not the adult conversation, but the 20,000 students as the future of this county, from an economy standpoint, from a work and economic standpoint, from a hope standpoint, and have school systems that foster and drive that. It is a new model for community mobility. And so my hope and vision, right? Like I continue to talk to the folks that touch all of this. The work that you're doing is beautiful, but you're trying to grow a tree that's 30,000 feet up in the air, and you haven't tended to the roots, and the roots are our children. And so it's that, I think it's that merging, that kind of goes into, where I'm currently sitting when we even talk about skills of the future. The skills and competencies, and the conversation is like, what are the skills that we need to prepare students to be equipped to, enter this unknown future, or the future of work, or whatever it is. And I'm not talking about it like that in the moment. I'm talking about it as, what are the skills that we ought to be preparing students to be the designers of a new future, because I'm not sure that we've done our due diligence in taking care of what they're entering. Not entering a political conversation, but the world isn't well. And so I don't want to prepare students for this. I want to prepare students to make it better, and they can. But let's get intentional about what those skills are. Let's value them in space. Let's value them in schedules. Let's value them in time. And again, I believe it's that intersection of these two playbooks that provides not a prescription, but a roadmap for what's possible.
Well, I think that's a really good call to action to leave this on. Jonah, thank you so much for sharing about this new model. I'm looking forward to watching it as this new center takes flight, and to continuing to follow these new reforms as they're put into place. So, yeah, and good luck on the first day of school. I know it's coming.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna jump out of here, and we'll keep setting up classrooms and get it ready. But I really appreciate the time, the questions, and the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Awesome. And for all of you tuning in, we'll be back next time on The Future of Education.